At the BizVision Conscious Business Academy, we view the conscious agenda across many aspects and elements. One is the conscious leader, someone who is aware of his or her responsibility to people and planet and acts consistently conscious. Now, we all know COVID-19 has changed the lives and outlooks of many people forever. I wanted to know how this has impacted and continues to impact those on the front line and how it affects conscious leadership. My Conscious Leader Show guest is a frontline ICU, that's intensive care unit doctor, working a mile from the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., USA. So imagine showing your conscious leadership as such a person, caring for colleagues and patients alike in an almost unprecedented situation. My guest is a great example of women in leadership. She is Dr. Manisha Singal. Welcome, Manisha.
Thank you, Malcolm, and good day to you and all your listeners. Thanks for having me.
And I think you've obviously been doing fantastic work. In my opening piece, I mentioned your work, though, in ICU. Can you share some experience about working on the front lines in the Washington, D.C. area during the pandemic?
Absolutely, Malcolm. And I have to say, I know my experiences are not unlike the experiences of every individual throughout our universe. Literally, we're all fighting the fears and the stress of this virus. It's invaded every aspect of our society. You know, when we say the front lines, yes, I am a physician. I work in the intensive care unit alongside amazing individuals, nurses, and other doctors, and all the employees. It's our job to take care of the very sick. But the front lines is also the front lines of people who are greeting each other, you know, on the streets, our first responders when it comes to our emergency responders as well. So, but yeah, this has really invaded every aspect of our life.
Yes. It would be understandable if the personal stress and fear of it all caused some team disruption. So how are you managing your teams through this? What are you especially proud about?
So my hospital is Bridgepoint Hospital here on Capitol Hill, and I am so impressed with our nurses, every single individual that has their hand in patient care. Malcolm, this is our job. So taking care of the very sick is not new to us. But with the pandemic, it's not just about the person who's at the bedside. It's not just about their families. It's now about all of us. How can we protect all of us to keep doing our jobs? And then when we go home, how do we protect our families? So the stress of this has been enormous. We've had nurses and doctors and other specialists that have really had to search themselves as to whether they could really continue to work on the front lines. Did they feel that our hospital was providing them with the tools to keep safe, to keep doing what they need to do, not only because it's their mission, it's their job, it's their livelihood. And we've had individuals that have said, look, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. I need to resign. I need to quit. And then it's really up to myself and my partners on our leadership teams to really corral our employees, to educate them, to give them confidence that we're right there with them. It's not about it's about the team. We're going to find those protective materials that you need to keep safe, to keep doing the great work that you're doing, as well as not to bring it home. So Malcolm, it's been a great stress, but I cannot tell you in times of, it's, how do I say it, in this devastating situation that we all find ourselves in, the light, it's like people have risen to that occasion. They have taken that mantle and they believe in their heart that if it's not for them, then who is going to help those who most need us? So I'm immensely proud of my team.
It's a very, very humbling to hear that, and congratulations to you and to them for the exceptionally brilliant work you're doing. Now, as the pandemic has progressed, and it has not left yet, how has your thinking about COVID-19 changed? Is it being better today than at the start?
Well, we have learned a lot, and this is largely through our collaborative shared knowledge through the many countries that have been riveted by the pandemic. We have all expected a second surge. Our fear with all that we're learning and all the tools and mechanisms that we're putting in place is complacency, and people thinking, okay, we're on the other side of the curve, so now we can let down our guard. But here we are, Malcolm, and now in a second surge. So where we are now, as far as being able to protect ourselves, having more tools for potential treatment, ways to improve our immune systems, we're in a much better place now than where we were back in March, back in April here in the United States. But the fear is still very palpable. It's real. We know that this virus will mutate. We know the different groups of individuals that are most vulnerable to it. It's a 24/7, not only job, but awareness, consciousness of doing the right thing, trying to live some new normal. I don't know if I could call this a normal, but it is definitely a new way of life. So
I'm with you.
I can talk about this for hours, but yeah.
I know. And my heart goes out to you and your team. Doing your job, in my mind, automatically makes you a conscious leader. You show care. But sometimes, come on, Manisha, that stress must get to you. What's your own self-care routine?
It does get to me because, we all have families, right? It's oftentimes we don't think about ourselves, especially when you're in a position of service. We're the lowest on our own totem pole. Now, through the years, for myself, for my colleagues, for my team, for my nurses, we're always working. We work in a very stress-induced environment, pandemic or no pandemic. One of the tools for self-care, actually there's several, but one of my tools for self-care is to make an appointment with yourself. We all have calendars, even more so now than ever before. Right? We're Zooming here, we're Zooming there. But I encourage your listeners to take a moment, and I do this for myself. I put myself on the calendar. No one needs to know why you're on the calendar. It's a meeting. And whether it's a 15-minute meeting, a 30-minute meeting, I'm known for taking that time, going to my office, whether I listen to some cool music from the 80s, or I try to belt out a tune and no one's listening, or I meditate, do some stretches. These are my self-care tools and tips. And more so now than ever before, it's really helped me through this pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So on Mondays, I'm going to have Roy Orbison. Tuesday, Gene Pitney. On Thursdays, Johnny Cash. Yeah, I'll get it. But I can't stretch as far as the 80s. Brilliant idea, though. 15 minutes into the diary, block it out. Yeah. Now, viewers and listeners, before I move into the next part, you're going to need to make certain you've taken down the URL for Doc Singal behind me, DocSingal.com. Doc Singal. You'll find out why in a second. You're both a frontline doctor and an entrepreneur, and your new book on CBD skincare is now out. Are you hopeful that we all becoming a more tolerant society, a more caring society, truly demonstrating consciousness, such as in diversity and equality, or are we far away from it?
I have to say we're closer now than we've ever been before. And I don't know if it's the pandemic, if it's the awareness. There's been quite a few movements that have really brought all of us together across countries. But I see diversity and equality gaining more speed and more platforms. We still have a ways to go. I see this in my own company with my beauty line. My women chemists, actually, I think most of them are women. When have you heard of a group of researchers that are all women, right? I mean, there's great industry out there in diversity. So I'm very hopeful. I'm very excited. And I give a lot of credit to all the millions of people that have traveled to bring this to our lives.
Yeah, I just love it when a business embraces diversity, because that business just bubbles with ideas and achievement and everything. It's really exciting. Now, let's tell us about this new book. What inspired you to write it? I think it came, did it not, from a lack of consideration with someone telling you to solve your skin condition by soaking it in bleach. That wasn't a president, was it? Am I right?
It was a shock to me. And as a doctor, there's very little, I have to tell you, Malcolm, that shocks me. But that was interesting. So the skinny on that is I had a terrible skin reaction to chemicals and hair dye. It took me about 6 months to get through it. I was in a cocktail of medications. The medications that we know can be toxic in themselves. They're chemicals. So in my search for some more natural remedies, I came across CBD. And really this book is about my own experiences, my education. I've put references throughout the book on research that's been done in the area of cannabis and cannabinoids, peer research, organizations, advocates. So this book was really meant for the layperson who may be intrigued about what is cannabis, what is CBD, and also to stimulate minds into considering that, there are some pretty interesting tools that are here that can really help us in our shared interest to live healthier lives.
Excellent. Now, just remind people again, you can get the details towards that book there, docsingal.com. I want to sneak a little question in here, because when we talk about conscious business and conscious leaders, you're a great example of a woman leader. What changes have you seen within your profession and your business activity of that greater understanding of diversity, equality, inclusion?
Well, I've seen a great openness from women professionals, whether they're in the boardroom or at the bedside as a physician, or entrepreneurial when it comes to something such as cannabis, which, by the way, right now we're still about 30% diverse, but growing.
Wow.
So I'm very excited. I think whether you're a man or a woman, we all have a lot to share and to learn from. And it's high time, and it's an exciting time, and we will see much more of that diversity and inclusion.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. That's a thumbs up for that. Manisha, it's time for my traditional 3 wishes for my guest. Now, if I was to give you those 3 wishes on what society has truly learned from this pandemic, what would those 3 wishes be?
I think number 1 is humility. This virus does not discriminate. Doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you have multiple prior illnesses or you've been healthy. So I think number 1 is humility. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that famous phrase, love thyself and love thy neighbor. So I think more so than ever, we're seeing great examples of people coming together and really caring for each other, because unless we really show each other that care and say, look, I'm going to protect myself, but by protecting myself, I'm also protecting you, we're not going to get through this pandemic, irrespective of what the politics may be. And number 3 is, we really need more tools. We've already come through science and experience some great tools to really fight this pandemic. But I'm really hopeful, looking forward to the next 1 year, maybe even 2 years, for vaccines to really help us hopefully completely eradicate this virus like we did the smallpox. So these are my wishes.
Dr. Manisha Singal, you are truly inspiring. Thank you for a wonderful interview.
Thank you, Malcolm, and thank you for all your listeners. for being part of this platform.